You're getting fence estimates. One guy gives you a bid for $4,500. Another guy says $7,000, and a third dude's talking about $11,000. One of them can get to it tomorrow. One of them says he's booked for 3 weeks. Why is there such a variance in these factors when you're getting fence estimates? Are some guys ripping you off? Are some guys just that much better than other guys? Or are there hidden factors going on behind the scenes that homeowners never get to see? Today, I hope to walk you through those things so when you get estimates for your fence, you can do so much more intelligently and from a place of being educated. So let's get straight into it. Point number one, the estimate often starts before the contractor even gets to your house. Homeowners don't always realize this, but the neighborhood you're in is going to matter. The distance he has to travel matters. The photos you're able to send him and your description of the work matters. And even your first phone call with the contractor makes a big difference. Experienced contractors can usually tell within a few minutes how difficult the job may be, how clear the customer is, how much risk may be involved, and honestly, whether they even want the job to begin with. And that sounds harsh, but estimating is partly pricing out the material and the labor and the time. But a big part of it is pricing out and factoring in the risk involved with the contractor. Once the contractor gets to your property, they're immediately taking a look and seeing things that you never considered. They're looking at the rockiness of the soil, the slope that the fence exists on, the access to the fence, how far the fence is from the nearest spot you can park. Carrying lumber 40 feet is a lot different than having to carry lumber from the nearest parking spot around the house to where the gate is, and then to the fence on the other side that you want them to work on. They're also looking at things like vines growing into the fence, trees growing right along the fence. Sometimes I've had customers have like a huge 40-foot stack, 3 foot tall of firewood on the fence that they didn't mention until I got out there to give them the estimate. They're also looking at how efficient and easy it'll be to tear it out and dispose of the fence. If the fence is falling apart, it's not going to be nice, clean panels that you can carry to the truck or the trailer. All these little things slowly start to increase the labor cost. And labor is a big factor. It's usually the biggest thing you're paying for when you hire a guy, his expertise and his labor. You got a job that you can park right on the street, carry lumber 40 feet. It's good, clean soil. There's nothing against the fence. It's in relatively okay shape. You cut it down, haul it to the truck or trailer, and build a new one. That's easy peasy. Now compare that to one with rocky soil, a steep slope. You're carrying stuff through mud. The gate is on the opposite side of the house from where the fence is. There's roots everywhere. The old concrete is either overpoured or the wood posts are snapped off at the base. Those things all increase the labor and the time it takes to do a good job. I've been on jobs where the neighbor had built landscaping up about 1.5 feet up along the fence. So when I tore down the fence, there's like a 15-inch, 18-inch difference between the customer's lawn grade and the neighbor's lawn grade. And that alone is a huge problem. That's going to take time and expertise that DIYers don't have, and contractors aren't going to give you for free. Suddenly, the exact same footage of fence tripled in price for the same length of fence and the same style of fence. You could be talking about a factor of 2 or 3 to 1 on the end price, given some of these factors. A lot of customers think, oh, fence is a fence. Not so. Homeowners, I get it. They're looking at, oh, my neighbor had 40 feet done and it cost this. Why is my 40 feet for the same fence costing this? I hope I've made that a little more clear on what factors homeowners may not consider that fence guys have to in order to run a profitable business. And on top of that, if this video has done you any good, consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and engaging with my other content. It really means a lot to me. We're at almost 1,500 subscribers, so that's big time. I'm putting videos out several times a month. This is not an old dead channel. Point number 2, I'm going to get into what homeowners often overlook. This is probably where the biggest disconnect happens between the customer and the contractor. There's a lot more involved than simply wood plus labor. For example, you got disposal. The old fence tear out can be a huge job by itself, especially if there's vines and trees growing all through the fence or it's falling apart. I hate to sound redundant, but these are things that homeowners just don't think about. There's also post depth. Customers say, oh, why you charge so much to put in post? I could charge you a fraction of it to just dig a hole with a shovel 8 inches deep and pour a little concrete in. But you really want a cylindrical hole dug with auger or post hole diggers that's at least, a quarter, hopefully closer to a third of the height of the post that's above the grade. If you do it this way, the post will last much longer and stand up to wind and do their job. Also, the amount of gates you want and the size of these gates is going to make a big difference too. A lot of fence problems start at the gate. Sagging gates from using nails instead of screws, that's a no-no. Warped posts, the spring coming off the latch or the hinges being warped or some of the bolts that hold the hinges to the rails falling out. These are all things that contractors consider because if they warranty their work, they know these things need to be done right or they'll be coming back. Homeowners don't often consider these things. And then you've also got permits, fuel, travel time. You've got weather delays, equipment wear, the warranty risk you have to factor into the job. If a contractor warranties his work, he's going to charge for that. But I can promise you, it's almost always money well spent as long as it isn't an outrageous increase over a comparable bid with no warranty. Point number 3, I want to cover what upgrades cost more and drive the price up or down depending on these options. This is where homeowners can accidentally blow up a budget without really realizing it. Some upgrades are mostly cosmetic, some upgrades genuinely improve the fence, and some are both. For example, cedar versus pressure treated. Cedar usually lasts considerably longer than pressure treated, and it looks prettier when stained. Steel posts instead of wood posts, I mean, that's a no-brainer. But these things raise the material costs, and overall longevity may improve, but it's a matter on a customer by customer basis if it's worth it to you. I know we touched on gates, but that's another massive variable when you're building a new fence because the quality matters, the width of them matters. Double gates or big elaborate sliding gates with gate operators, those can become their own project and their own bid in themselves sometimes. Then there's staining, one side or both sides, brand new versus reusing the old hinges and latch hardware on the gates, the ribbon board, the top cap, screws versus nails, rot boards along the bottom, board on board overlap of the pickets. All these things drive up both material and labor. And I've had to explain these things to customers. They say, my neighbor, he got this fence done and I got the same footage. What can you do it for? And I'm like, this much to do that. And they're like, well, I got another bid for this much. And it turns out the homeowner didn't specify with the cheaper bid that they wanted it to match their neighbor's beautiful fence. So they got a bid for a basic fence. And I look like the jerk trying to upsell them. And I'm like, I'm not. Ask your neighbor what they paid per linear foot. I can almost guarantee you I'm competitive. It's just the things people don't consider. Staining especially surprises people in my experiences because now, you got time. You got to worry about getting to the other side of the fence, dealing with the neighbors. Rain in the forecast is now a factor. The dry time after rain and after staining are now factors. You have to purchase the stain. You have to take your time to mask things off, prevent drips, drops, overspray. All these things increase the scope of the job they just do. Building on a heavy slope is slower. You've got more layout time, more cuts, more adjustments. Again, more labor. Heck, one buried utility line in an inconvenient spot means that instead of augering holes with your electric or gas auger and it taking you maybe 60 seconds a hole, now you have to literally hand dig. And I mean with a shovel, but I also mean sometimes with a hand spade or like a hammer, you're literally digging through roots and rocks and around pipes and sprinkler lines. Contractors have to factor that in whether it seems fair or not. Personally, some upgrades are definitely worth the money. Like you want a rot board on bottom to keep the pickets up out of the mud if you can afford it. You want 6-inch wide pickets instead of 4-inch wide. All screws, no nails. You want 2x4 rails instead of 2x3s. You want steel posts instead of wood posts, frankly. These things usually matter long term. Some purely cosmetic upgrades look nice, but don't dramatically improve the lifespan of the fence. And I think it's important for homeowners to understand the difference between functional and aesthetic upgrades. Point number 4, and this is one I can speak to well from personal experience, why some contractors are so much cheaper. This is probably the section people are most curious about because sometimes the price differences are huge. And honestly, sometimes cheaper contractors really are just more efficient, but sometimes they're definitely cutting corners. And there's a lot of ways to cut corners in fencing. You got shallower post footings, like I said, the 2x3 rails instead of 2x4s, reusing the old hardware versus buying brand new, using nails instead of screws, skipping permits, not using insurance, using underskilled labor, underexperienced labor, or honestly, sometimes it's just a practice job. Everybody starts somewhere, and if someone doesn't have the experience that they'd like to, they're willing to bid a job for much less profit so that they can get their reps in. Like I said, everybody starts somewhere, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do a bad job. But also, inexperienced new contractors often underbid because they don't fully understand the labor involved, the material waste, the timeline of it, or just the amount of hassle that they're getting themselves into. There's a reason you were by far the cheapest bid. I've had to explain that to contractors many times, and they're like, man, I'm in over my head on this job. Everything's been a pain in the butt. And I'm thinking, I saw all those things when I went out there with you. You didn't see those things, nor were you willing to listen to me when I brought those things to your attention. You wanted the job and you underbid it. And now halfway through the job, you're out of money to be made on it. A lot of times guys bid these jobs cheap, like I said, just because they need the work immediately. That happens too. But here's the thing, cheap quotes often don't leave any room for callbacks, warranty work, making mistakes, using quality materials and quality building practices. And when profit disappears halfway through the job, like it did for my friend I mentioned, the contractor stops really caring about your fence. And that's the ugly truth of it that a lot of homeowners don't consider, but they don't consider it because they didn't know that. I hope that's eye-opening for some of you to think about it like that from our point of view. Section 5, I'm going to get into the signs of a shady contractor. So we established earlier that not every cheap contractor is bad, but there are definitely red flags homeowners should be paying attention to. Things like pressure tactics, today only pricing, only willing to take cash, wanting a deposit up front that's more than maybe 30% of the price, being vague on the descriptions and the materials they're going to use, refusing to provide written estimates, having no references or photos is also sketchy, I think. And, just in general, an unbelievably low price should be a red flag. These are all warning signs. And one thing I don't personally like is when customers are super vague about the materials they're going to be using. Because homeowners often assume, oh, wood's wood, but it's not. Cedar versus pressure treated pine matters. The hardware matters. Post depth, what fasteners are used. You're talking about nails or screws. Rail and picket size matter. There's a huge difference between, oh, it looks good today, and it's still a properly standing fence doing its job looking decent 10, 15, 20 years from now. And these things, these potential cut corners are that difference. That $200 you save on the bid, instead of paying $3,400, you pay $3,200 or $3,150. That $250 is the reason you're going to have to spend another $3,000 in 5 years rather than spending that $3,000 again in 15 or 20 years. And if you want a more detailed breakdown on these contractor red flags to watch out for, I actually made this video and I think you'll find it interesting. So check that video out. Tell me what you think. And on top of that, if this video has done you any good, consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and engaging with my other content. It really means a lot to me. We're at almost 1,500 subscribers, so that's big time. I'm putting videos out several times a month. This is not an old dead channel. So let's get into it with point number 6, why contractors can sometimes be cheaper than DIY, believe it or not. A lot of homeowners assume DIY automatically saves money, and a lot of times it does, but not always. Contractors benefit from supplier bulk pricing discounts, delivery advantages. They have better material sourcing than you do. They already own the augers, the saws, the compressors, the trailers, the specialty tools. And beyond that, just their experience matters a lot. A crew that's built hundreds of fences is going to be faster and more efficient with less material waste than you are. That's not an insult. It's just repetition. These guys have the reps that you do not. Delivery logistics are also a big factor. The homeowner might rent a truck multiple times, make multiple trips to the store, waste a ton of boards by making inefficient cuts. You have cut off material waste, things like that. On a $10,000 job, if a DIYer did it himself, let's say the materials are 4,000 of it, a DIY homeowner might go through $4,700 in materials just because they didn't use them efficiently. Some were wasted. Some were cut too short or cut inefficiently. A contractor can save you that $600-700. Now, DIY can absolutely make sense if you enjoy the work, if you have the time, if you want to learn, and the labor costs are simply too high. If you can calculate up roughly what the bid is, or you can have the contractor send you what the materials are for the bid, and the labor is more than maybe 2.5 times the material total, that starts to seem a little sketchy to me. Maybe consider other estimates or DIYing at that point. But homeowners got to understand that contractors aren't only selling the labor and the material. They're selling their efficiency, their systems, their experience, speed, logistics, and problem solving that'll invariably be a part of the fence. No two fences are the same, and there's always going to be things that come up that require someone with experience that DIYers are often going to struggle with and cobble together good enough and regret the end result, for the lifetime of the fence, not be happy with. That's a big part of the value that a contractor brings to you. Point number 7, I think is interesting, and I get a lot of questions on it. Contractor came out and he wanted to charge me $120 for the estimate. What's the deal on guys wanting paid for the estimate? This one's interesting because homeowners and contractors both have strong opinions on it. Personally, I think most straightforward estimates under about $10,000 should be free. It's just the cost of doing business. But once projects become complicated, unusual, very large in their scale, engineering or design heavy, or require just extensive planning with multiple site trips, I can absolutely understand charging $100, $125 for the estimate time, because detailed estimates take real time. Site visits, measurements, material calculations, planning, problem solving ahead of time, thinking about things you'll run into and working those in. Those things all take time. And I'm not saying that should increase the price. I'm just saying that can maybe help to justify why some contractors, especially specialty contractors coming from 45 minutes to an hour and a half away, do want to charge you a little bit for their time and fuel to compile a good bid for you. That's not totally unheard of. At a certain point, the contractor's not just giving you a quick quote anymore. They're providing actual consultation and project planning in some cases. And honestly, like I said, a good estimate is really valuable to a homeowner, and valuable things, a lot of times you have to pay for. Point number 8, why some contractors intentionally bid high. This part fascinates homeowners. And yeah, sometimes contractors do intentionally bid it way higher than they know is a fair price. Now, sometimes it's greed, but let's be honest. A lot of times it can be other things too. Maybe the contractor is overloaded already. Maybe he sees the work as being extremely difficult or troublesome. Maybe the drive is far away for him. Maybe access to the fence is terrible. Maybe 1,000 feet away is the closest you can legally park a truck or trailer, and all the lumber's got to get carried that 1,000 feet. He's got a few good paying jobs coming up in the next 2 weeks. He doesn't want the job. And therefore he says, I don't really want this job, but I would do it if I could get it for an unusually high amount of money, significantly more profit than would normally be fair. And yeah, honestly, sometimes contractors can tell after one phone call if a customer is going to be super difficult, super picky, changing things around, trying to haggle the price after the work's done. That's just real life for us contractors after years in the trades. It happens. So sometimes the contractor thinks, I don't really want this job, but again, if I could get it for considerably more than a fair price, I would do it. I could work it into my schedule. And that's where some of those crazy bids come from. I'll be honest with y'all. I don't actually ever do this myself. I usually just turn down the work straight up. When I was newer, I'll be honest with you, I did do this, but it's been years. Now I'll just turn down the work if it's too far or seems too difficult, or I just don't feel like the customer I'm giving a bid to is a good fit for me as a customer. I'm just honest with them straight up. And homeowners are often shocked by the amount of how badly the contractor wants or doesn't want the job factor can increase the price one way or the other. In closing, at the end of the day, fence estimate is not just the wood plus the labor. It's risk, experience, logistics, efficiency, materials, warranty, the difficulty of the fence, the time it'll take, and the problem solving that invariably comes with bigger fence projects. And once homeowners understand that, contractor pricing usually starts making a lot more sense. Now, that doesn't mean every cheap contractor is automatically bad, and certainly doesn't mean that every expensive contractor is automatically good. But hopefully after this video, you can compare estimates a lot more intelligently and understand what's actually happening behind the scenes, and compare the estimates you get from a place of being educated and more intelligent on the subject. Honestly, if there's one thing I'd leave you with, it's this. The cheapest quote usually becomes the more expensive one eventually. I've seen that happen more times than I can count being in this industry for 6 years now, working for myself, but about 15 years in the industry total. If you enjoyed the video, like the video, subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you've ever gotten a crazy high bid or a crazy low bid that you took and then ultimately ended up regretting. Leave it in the comments. Let me know. I love hearing stories from all of y'all. I'll respond to every comment. Again, we're almost at 1,500 subs, so throw me a subscribe if you liked it. I turn these videos out for you guys all the time. So thanks for watching this video, y'all, and I'll see you on the next one.